Okay, welcome back. In this second episode, so in the previous episode, we set up our XAMPP server. Okay, we set up our XAMPP server, and at this point in time, we are going to set up our VS Code. So in the previous video, we tried to look at what PHP is. We wrote our first program, and we also managed to set up the PHP XAMPP server. Now, at this point in time, if you actually have problems with XAMPP, okay, you can always comment in the description, YouTube description, where I can actually give you some help. And those ones who are in the WhatsApp group, you can actually post your questions in the WhatsApp group or on my email, then I will actually get in touch with you. Okay, so right now, the first thing you are going to do in this video is going to set up the necessary VS Code extensions that is going to simplify our work. Okay, so just if you remember very well, we wrote our first program here in VS Code, okay, where we did this echo hello world. Okay, so let's look at the PHP extensions that can help us our developing or our life easy while developing with PHP. Now, actually, we don't need some of all these ones. They just put few of them so that you don't get actually overwhelmed at the start. I will be introducing more as we just move on. Okay, so the first one we are going to install is actually the most used ones are these two, the first two, but you can also include these last two. So the PHP IntelliSense, and then the PHP interface, and then auto cross tag and PHP FMT. So let's start with interface. Just go to your VS Code. Okay, go to your VS Code, and on this button here, as you can see, VS Code on the sidebar has a number of icons. Just notice this icon which says extensions, click on it, and just search for PHP interface. So you can first start with the interface actually. So search for PHP interface, just this one. So this one of Damjan. So just click on this one, PHP interface, and install it. So for my case, it's already installed. That's why it says an install. But simply just install it, and everything will be okay. So the second one is this PHP interface. Okay, so install this called PHP interface. Now, why are we installing these extensions? So extension in the first place is that piece of code that adds more functionality to another software. Okay, it's not a piece of code, but a piece of software that actually adds more functionality to another software. So if you have used Chrome extensions before, you know very well how we use more Chrome extensions to ease our work or to add more functionality to the browser. So in the same way, VS Code has a number of extensions that normal developers install to ease their development process or productivity. So some of these like PHP interface and IntelliSense, they give us first of all auto completion, some auto completion, code formatting, and even code highlighting. So if you make or you write something wrong, it highlights your code and it makes your life somehow easy while developing. Okay, so other two extension, another one is auto, I think it was auto rename tag. Is it auto rename tag? Let me just confirm here. Yeah, so it is auto cross tag, and this is not particularly for PHP, but is particularly even to help us when you're writing our HTML. So auto cross tag is to help us if you create only one tag, then it will create for you another tag. So if you come here and you write h1, you see it it just if you create only one, it also creates the second one. So this one is so much helpful as we are writing more code. Okay, so next, another one is PHP FMT. So this one is a PHP formatter. So you can just say PHP FMT. Okay, just install this one, PHP FMT. It is going to help us for formatting our code. And if you look down after installing it and you look at the top, at the bottom right corner, you'll see somewhere PHP FMT. Instead of prettier, you will see now it is PHP FMT that is formatting our code. Okay, so if you have installed those extensions, that is great, and that is actually all what we need to run. Okay, going back, we still have in the browser our hello world. Okay, but then let's jump in and now start getting into core concepts of PHP. Okay, let's get into core concepts of PHP. And the first concept you are going to get into is commenting and outputting. Now, if you are familiar with HTML or CSS, you know about comments. But really, commenting is a way to add notes to your code that are not executed by the computer or the browser. You can think of comments as little reminders or explanations that you leave for yourself or other programmers who might be reading your code. And I think this is a pretty good explanation of why you even need commenting in the first place. For example, if you're writing a program and you want to explain what a certain block of code does, you can add a comment next to it. Comments in PHP are denoted by two forward slashes at the beginning of the line. Anything after those slashes will be ignored by the computer, but it will be visible to anyone reading the code. The commenting here is very, very clear. I try to get a clear explanation that I can use so that you understand it. So for instance, let's say we have here 2 lines of code. So for instance, I want to explain that this is what does this line of code does. So I would write something like this. I would say this line of code, okay, this line of code displays hello world to the browser. Hello world to the browser. Okay, so you can see now they are giving us errors because they are trying to show that this code is going to be run, and they are showing us that this is not the right syntax or the right way of writing things. But if I put forward slash like that, the first thing you notice is that it has been grayed out. The color has changed to gray, and even the errors have disappeared. And this is what we call a comment. Okay, this is what we call a comment. They are little notes that you leave in your code to explain certain things in your code. Okay, so for instance, I'm explaining what this line of code does, and someone who is just going to be reading this code can understand what that line of code does. Another thing you have to notice is that this will not be run in the browser, but it can help developers who are reading the code to see it. And if I go back to the browser, you can see nothing that have changed. Okay, so this is great, and that is how we write our comments. And as we continue, we are going to be seeing and we are going to be writing more comments. Okay, and that is the comment concept, and we'll be seeing it more in action as we move on. And there is of course some example here I put in the slides that you can screenshot. By the way, as we are moving into coding, and just keep writing, take notes. there is no one who have ever learned swimming by watching those who swim. Okay, so if you want to learn coding, there is no way you can keep watching me coding and then for you are watching and forwarding and moving on. You will not learn any coding by watching anyone coding. If you see me coding, stop what I've explained. If I explain how to make a comment, stop the video or pause the video and then write it in your own VS Code, run it and see what happens. Okay, try to explore and try to be proactive. There is no way you're going to be watching videos. It will be one another video that you have watched and nothing is going to be able to go into your code. I've helped many people to learn coding, and the reason why is that I always make them, if even not force them, write the code by themselves so that they can actually learn. Okay, so that was about commenting, and we use double slash to comment our line of code. There is even another one called multi-line commenting. Maybe I should talk about it. So you can write on different lines by using this syntax. So you put slash, you put a star, and then you put at the end, you put your comments inside here. You can write many comments. If you had a lot of comments you want to explain, you can write them in this format. So this format is called multi-line comments. So let me just write here multi-line comment. So all these ones can be very many comments. Another comment. So there is this single, while we use these double slashes, this is for a one-line comment. But if you have a lot of comments, you can write them in this format. Okay, good. So let's move on to the next concept. Let's move on to the next concept. So the next concept is outputting. So what is outputting? So outputting is a way to display information or data to the user. So assuming you have some data in your code, how do we show that data to the user? So in PHP, we use echo function or echo statement to echo or to output text or data to the user. You can think of echo like a speaker that speaks the information or data out loud so that the user can see it. So for example, if you want to output a message to the user that says hello world, you would write something like echo hello world. And that is the one, actually the only function or the one line of code that we have done here is this echo hello world. And I used a very good example whereby this echo is just like a speaker that actually speaks those your statement loud to the user so that he can see. So if you say echo hello world and you go to the browser, maybe they just change this one to good morning. Okay, and you go to the browser, refresh, you see it is hello good morning. Okay, and you can echo a number of things including HTML. So for instance, I can echo, okay, I can echo maybe a p tag, or I can echo h2 tag. So let me say h2. Let me write here inside h2. Okay, I can write h2 here, and I can say hello everyone. So let me save. And by the way, as we are writing as part of the PHP code, if you look at my code right now, let me try to make sure you are right, you are seeing the code very well. If you look at my code very well, at every end of line I write, there is this semicolon. Okay, so take note of this semicolon every after you write your program. Okay, just put at the end that. Okay, it might just cause you problems or it might bring an error that you have not expect. Okay, so now save, go back to the browser and run that. You can see here, hello everyone. Okay, so you can even output HTML code. So great. So let's move on. We talked about commenting and outputting. So you can just go there and demonstrate, try to write many examples, output any statement you have. But then let's continue to the second concept. And in this second concept, we are going to look at data types. Okay. Now, the most important thing why we do even programming in the first place is that in real life, we are handling a lot of data. Okay. People are exchanging data. Everywhere you go, when you are selling something, you are explaining data. When you are doing something, posting on Facebook, posting on Instagram, you are giving data, you are giving information, you are writing blogs, you are doing all these kind of stuff. In every day-to-day life, everything we handle is almost data. Are you watching a movie? You are listening to music. It is a form of data. You have audios, you have written content. So all what we do in our daily life, we are exchanging data. So one thing that is very, very important in programming, in fact, is understanding data types. You have to understand which type of data you are dealing with, how to deal with it, and how to manage it, and how to manipulate it. And that's why in the first place, right away, we go into data types. Okay, so what are data types? So data types in PHP are essentially different kinds of variables you can use to store and manipulate data in your code. Okay, so at this point, if you have never had variables, you're asking, what are variables? So in programming, variables are like containers that hold values. And the data types determine what kind of values those containers can hold. Okay, so think of data types like different kinds of building blocks. Just like how you different kinds of building blocks can be used to build different things, different data types can be used to do different things in programming. But really here, there are two concepts you have to understand. One is a value, another one is a variable. Okay, so data types are just like different values. For instance, we always have things like statements. Okay, we have things like figures. The price of this product is 1,000. So you can see that 1,000 is a sort of a number or is a figure. So a number becomes like a value or it becomes a data type. Okay, sometimes it is questions. Sometimes it's just like true or false. And true or false, you are going to see it's also another type of data. So think of data types like different types of building blocks, and we can use this data to build different things or complicated stuff, as we are going to see in details. So examples of data types, we have a few of them in PHP, and the common ones or the ones we are going to concentrate on are these ones. So the first one are strings. Okay, strings, these are like blocks with words or letters on them. You can use them to build messages or labels in your code. So think of strings and as normal statements, as normal words, the way we use in daily life. For instance, name of a person, a statement, or anything really like a message, like good morning, hello world, my name is. All those of text like blocks or words are just called strings. Okay, now another type we have are numbers. So these numbers are just like blocks with numbers on them. You can use them to do math or keep track of how many times something has happened. So you're going to look also, another type is called numbers, and these ones are the ones we use like in computations and even other things. Then we have booleans. Now booleans, these are just like the yes or no. You have seen where they ask you a question and the answer is going to be yes or no. For instance, someone can ask you, are you a female or are you a male? Or so the answer will be yes or no, or true or false. Okay, so the yes becomes true and no becomes false. So you can use them to represent where something is true or false in your code. Then another block of that type is called arrays. So arrays, these are like a bunch of blocks all stacked together. Okay, so since we are using blocks in the first place as an example, this is just like a bunch of blocks stacked together. You can use them to store a bunch of related pieces of data in your code. In other words, you can collect a lot of information, maybe from a person or from wherever, and then you keep all that data in the same collection or in the same basket. Look at arrays as a basket containing these different types of sorts of other types of data. Okay, and then the last one we have objects. Now these are like special building sets with their own unique pieces. You can use them to represent specific things or concept in your code, and they come with their own functions and properties. So objects, they are sort of very special and different on how we use them. We are going to jump into examples and then you will see how different they are. Okay, so since we talked about data types and they move with variables, in this let me take this to explain more about variables. So as we said, in programming, a variable is like a container that holds a value or a piece of information. So think of a variable like a label that you can attach to a piece of information in your program. It helps you keep track of the information and use it whenever you need it. So you might just be, maybe for example, let's say you are writing a program that calculates the area of a circle. Okay, you might create a variable called radius and assign it a value of 5, since that's the radius of the circle you want to calculate. Then you can use that variable in your program to calculate the area of the circle without having to type out the value of the radius every time. So you can see in this example here, you want to calculate the area of a circle, but you know there is a piece of information that you are going to need, which is going to be radius. So you can create a variable called radius, and then you can assign it to a value of 5, and whenever you need to use radius, you simply call out that piece of information that you stored it in. So variables are really helpful in programming because they allow us to store and reuse information, which makes our code shorter, easier to read, and more efficient. Plus, we can change the value of a variable at any time and in one place, which makes it easy to update the information in our program. So we are going to look, of course, at different types of these variables. So for instance, let's just create some few variables for just understanding how this whole thing works. So for instance, I would create a variable called name. Okay, and we are going to jump into different rules of variables in a minute, but I just create here some variables. So in other words, I would create some $ name. So this is how we create a variable in PHP, and let me call it John. Okay, just call it John, and at the end put these semicolons. Okay, so this is how a variable looks like. Okay, it has a name, and then you assign it a value you want to put. I can create another one, call it age. Okay, call it age like so, and let me put a number like 30. Okay, and then now if I want to see these ones in the browser, so I can still use my echo. So just simply write echo here, and you can put $age, as simple as that. And if I go back to the browser right now, you can see I have 30 written here. Okay, great. So this is as simple as how we create a variable in PHP. It is as simple as that. Simple, have a name, attach a $sign on that name, and then put a value you want to put in. Okay, so let's just continue seeing more about variables. Okay, so you can see we created a name. So this variable could be used to store a person's name. For example, you might set the variable like this. You create a name. Let me just grab my pen here. So you can create, for instance, a name, and then you assign it a value. And then the same thing here, you can create, for instance, age, and you assign it a value. And then, for instance, you can also create this one. This variable could be used to store whether or not someone is a student. For example, you might set the value like this, is a student, and you set it to true. Okay, so having seen that we can store different data types in variables, now at this point actually we can check how do we know the type, or how do I know which type of data is stored in a given variable. Okay, so sometimes it is important to know what that type a variable represents in order to make sure your program is working correctly. So PHP provides several built-in functions that can help you check the data type of a variable, and one of them is called get type. So there is this function here which is called get type. So the get type function is a built-in PHP function that returns the data type of a variable. Okay, so just know the purpose of this function is to help us tell us which data type is stored in this variable, or this variable we are having like name is equal John. How do I know the data type of this variable? So it can tell us that, and the syntax is simply like this. You call get type, and then you pass in the brackets, you pass in a variable you want to check. Okay, so for instance, if we have a name, we can simply echo get type of name. So let's do that. So go back in VS Code here, and since we have already two variables set for us, I'm just going to come here. Instead of echo this one, I'm just going to say get type. Okay, so let me cut this edge and just put it in get type. Okay, get type, and put in that. So if I go to the browser right now, I refresh, you can see integer. Okay, so if I put in name here, so we are like, what is the data type for this name or this variable? So if I refresh, you see string. Okay, having seen how we test this, let's just jump in and actually move into details. Okay, let's move into details, and we look at all data types we have. We have about 6 different data types, so we want to go and look at some examples in each case. And we said the first data type we have is called a string. So we said a string is a series of characters, like a word or a sentence, that you can create a string. You can create a string variable like this. We have already demonstrated for a string. I will not repeat that one. And already we also have for an integer. So an integer is a whole number without any decimal places. By the way, I took time to write these notes in the slides, not because I wanted, but because for you guys take some screenshots and have these things written for you. Okay, it is good to have these notes. They help you when you are troubleshooting. You can remind yourself what an integer is. So an integer is a whole number without decimal places. It can be negative or positive. Okay, So you can see we created also an integer of age equal 30, and we even tested it. So another one is a float. So a float is a number with decimal places. Okay, so the difference between an integer and a float has decimal points, and an integer has no decimal places or decimal points. Okay, so for instance, you can create a price. So let's create a float. So we already have these two, a string and an integer. Let me go down here and create a price. So I can create a price and I say it is maybe $500, 500 point maybe $50. Okay, as such. So we can just get the type. So if I put here price, we can get the type of a float, and if you check it, it will give you something like double. Okay, so this float, its data type is called double, not float. So a float, for some reason, its data type is not float as you'd expect for integer and string, but it's called double. Okay, and there's somewhere I noted it somewhere. You're going to see it somewhere. So the data type for it is called double, but just know it is called a float. Okay, and a float is that number which has decimal places. It can be negative or positive. Another one is a boolean. So a boolean is a variable that can have one of the two values, true or false. You can create a boolean just like this one. So let's create a boolean. So for instance, we can create here dollar, and we say is student. In fact, you could just say is orphan, just like that. And the answer here must be either true or false, but not both. Okay, so you can see here I want to check the data type here. So come and let's put here is orphan. If you go back to the browser and you check the data type here, the data type is boolean. Okay, so a boolean is that value that has answers either false or true. Okay, so next let's look at another data type, and next is an array. So an array is a variable that can hold multiple values. Just simple as that. An array holds a multiple values. They can be of the same or different data types in a single variable. You can create an array like this. So for instance, you can create an array of fruits, an array of numbers, an array of names. So let's create an array here, and then let's create like fruits. So I can just say fruits is equal to, and we use these square brackets to put the array, and you can just say, for instance, mango, comma, I put maybe guavas, I put comma, and I put grapes, and I can just go ahead and put one more, maybe let's put banana. Okay, the ones who argue banana is a fruit or not, but just put like those ones. So you can see we have here fruits, and we can also test what that type that is stored there. And you can even, by the way, echo fruits here, and first have a look at them. Echo dollar fruits, like so, like such. Let me first comment out this one. And by the way, to comment, the shortcut for commenting is control plus slash. So this one gives you a shortcut for commenting. Okay, control plus slash. Okay, so this is how we I want to look at this variable. So if you print out here, warning, arrays. So this is a good thing to see. An array to string conversion, blah blah online stuff. And you can see here is showing it is an array. So arrays, we don't use echo. Okay, I wanted you at least to see that. So on arrays we don't use echo, but we are going to look at another one, for instance, like var_dump in a second. Okay, we can use another one called I think var_dump. Let's first see if var_dump can give us what we want. So put this inside. Okay, this is maybe to take you up speed, but we are going to talk about var_dump in a second. Okay, so let's first see if var_dump can solve a problem. Yeah, so you see it has an array and it has actually tried to print out all these ones. So var_dump, we are going to talk about it in a second, but it gives us all the index at 0. We have mangoes at position 1. We have gavas, and there's a string. It gives us a lot of details. In fact, it gives us the index, it gives us the data type, and it gives us even the length of that string, and then it gives us that string here. Okay, never mind about var_dump. I'm just going to explain it in details in the future, but right now let's echo out the data type of this array fruits. Okay, just we are looking at different examples of how you create a variable for different for different data types, and we are on arrays. So here I can check the data type of arrays by checking like this. So if I refresh, you can see this is an array. So next is an object. As we said, an object is more complex variable that represents an instance of a class. So right now, those are new key terms we are hearing, but if you wanted to create a variable, it would look something like this. Okay, you don't have anything to worry about, but what this means is that you can create for instance, a person. Okay, so a person can have a lot of things on him, and if you want to store that information, we would store it in an object. Okay, so for instance, you can start populating the data in a person. For instance, the person name is John, the person age is 20. Okay, this is how you populate the data into this object. Right now what we want to do is just only checking this, the data type here, and if you check here, you see it is an object. Okay, it is an object, and it is showing us what it has inside. I don't know, did we put in a var_dump or we put in a var_dump? Okay, so var_dump, it was showing us what we have. Let's just put here in person. So just it is an object, and that's the only thing we wanted to understand. Okay, so at least right now we know how to create at least one of all the types we have. You can be able to create a sample variable in it, and then you can even explain what it does. Okay, so we have looked at creating at least some different types of variables. Let's look at the rules that govern while you are creating your variables. Okay, people normally create variables, and then you find you're having some errors with the variable name, how you are choosing it. How do we create variables, and what are the rules that we normally use in PHP to create good variables? So variable names must start with a $sign. That is the first one and the ultimate one of all. Okay, there is no any way you can run it without putting a $sign. So a $sign is so much paramount that if you don't put it, it does not become a variable in any way. So you can create a name, age, price. You see, we are putting the $sign on them. The second rule is variable names must be followed by a valid name. And what is a valid name? A valid name is a name which can include letters, numbers, or underscores. However, Variable names cannot start with a number. So you cannot say 2 or any figure or any number and you are starting it as a variable. It is not allowed. Third one, variable names are case sensitive, which means that if you created a variable called name in small letters, it is different from name with this first letter capital. These two are different variables. Just know that. Variables must be assigned a value before they can be used in your program. For example, you cannot start coding out name or using it before you define it. So you must first assign it a value. You can create it without a value, but to use it, before they are used, they must be assigned values. Okay? Next, variables can be reassigned a new value at any time. So for instance, let me just demonstrate those two we have talked about. So the first one, we said variables, they must be, before they are used, they must be defined. So for instance, if I have not defined anywhere x, so maybe I can say $x. Okay, this is maybe my new variable. By the way, you can create a variable without actually assigning it a figure. Okay, but then you cannot just come here and start using it. Okay, you cannot just say maybe y, $y, let's say $y is equal to $x plus 2. Okay, you cannot do this. You cannot do this. Okay, you cannot do this because if we try to echo out, so let's echo something like y. Echo. So let's try to echo y out. $y. So if you try to echo y, obviously we might get somewhere an error. And you can see here there is a warning, an undefined variable $x, and they even give you on the line. Okay, so you cannot start using something which is not defined. You must give it a value for it to work. Then the second one, which you're saying, you can reassign. So for instance, while we have a name, I can of course come and change this name later and I give it to Jane. Okay, I can just say this name to Jane and it still works. Okay, the next thing is variables can be used in expressions and calculations. You saw me doing that. So you can, for instance, say total price is equal price times quantity. Okay, variables can be used in expressions. Okay, we are going to talk about that in a minute, whereby we are looking at different signs. So for instance, if we defined x here, maybe is equal to 20, and now we can perform this calculation or this expression. If I go back to the browser, do that, and you can see it is 22. Okay, this one is for this one. Let's just do this. It is 22, as you can see here. Okay, so let's continue. Moving on here with the rules. The last one, variables can also be used as placeholders for values that are not yet known, but will be determined later in your program. For instance, you might use a variable like result to hold the result of a calculation that you might perform later in your code. As we said, you can say let x, the x should be there, but you can give it a value later in your code. Okay, so let's talk about this var dump. I talked about var dump in a minute earlier. So var dump function is a PHP function that is used to display information about a variable, including its type and value. It can be used to debug the code and see the data type and the value of the variables at different stages of execution. So normally var dump is used so much when we are debugging. Sometimes you do something and then it is giving you different answers. you might want to debug and know, okay, what am I dealing in with here? You might be multiplying a string and you're multiplying it with a number. Okay, so vardump can give you all more information about a variable, and it can help you debug it very well or understand what is happening with this variable. Okay, so in this the last concept we are going to see in this video to reach at the end, we are going to look at concatenation. We are going to look at concatenation. So what is concatenation? Concatenation is the process of combining two or more strings together to create a single string. So in PHP, there are two main ways how we can concatenate strings. There is a dot notation and using the curly bracket notation. So let's start with a dot notation. So when someone talks about concatenation, whether in Python, whether in JavaScript, whether in PHP, it means joining two things together. Okay, so let's create here some two strings, two variables. So I'm just going to create a variable which says first name. So first name is equal to maybe is equal to John. Okay, then last name, so I'm just going to create another one called last name is equal to Do. Why not? Okay, so now if we wanted to create another variable like full name, so we could create a full name is equal to, so let's first look at the first one. The first one to concatenate, we said it is called dot notation. Okay, so in the dot notation, we use a dot to join two strings. So for instance, I can say first name, okay, first name dot last name dot last name, and this one will give us a full name. So let's echo out this full name. So let me get this echo here, dollar full name. So if we go back to the browser, we can see that we have our John Doe on the screen. But if you see very well, there is no space. Okay, there is no space here in John Doe. So to add some space, we can concatenate space. So space is also seen as a string, so we can concatenate it here, put space like so, concatenate it here on the last name. So you can add space in this format. So if we went now, refresh, you can see there is a string in between here, or there is some space now. So this is the first one called the dot notation. So let's look at another one called the bracket, the curly brace, or the curly bracket notation. So we have another one called curly bracket notation. So this is why we use a curly bracket. So I'm just going to first comment out this one, and down here I'm just going to say dollar full name. So here we would get a full name by saying, okay, double quotes. So put double quotes and then use curly braces inside here. Then put your first name. So dollar first name. Okay. And then here like this. Okay. The good thing with this one, we are the one who control the amount of space one. If you don't want space, you can create it like this. If you want to put more space, put space like that. Okay, so this I find this one more applicable, and this one is used really very well. Okay, so if we now print out on the console, you still see we have John Doe. Okay, so this is very powerful, using the concept of strings. Okay, using the concept, not concept of strings, but the concept of um, um, variables, putting them together with the concept of concatenation. Already right now you can build a serious program. So let's write a small program. Then after that, we are going to look at our coding challenge number 1, and we will end with that you are going to try out by yourselves. So let's say we are going to write a program that calculates the area of a triangle. Okay, so here I'm just going to say a program that calculates area of a triangle. Okay, this is the area of a triangle given given radius, okay, of the triangle, given radius. Okay, so let's just use how we can combine the power of variables and concatenation to do this program. So of course we would first create our first variable, for instance radius. So let me say radius, no, area of a triangle is given by what? So area of a triangle is equal to a half times a half times times base. Is it a half times base times height times height? So that this is given, not given radius, but given base and height, I guess. Okay, given that. So we know very well that area of a triangle is calculated from here. Okay, so we can first create our two variables, the base and the height. So let me create dollar base is equal to maybe let's give it a figure. Let's give it like a 10, and let's also create here dollar height, and let's give it maybe 20, and then let's calculate the area now. So area or triangle area, so triangle area is equal to a half, which is 0.5, times, so times we use star, base, which is dollar base, and then times height, which is dollar height. Okay, which is dollar height. Okay, like so. So of course if we echo out here area of a triangle here, so let me just get this variable and put it in here so that we can see it. So refresh, you can see it is 100. Okay, it's 100 because 10 times this one, 200 times a half is 100. So area is 100. So how do we give a statement? So let's just construct a message or the result. So we can construct a result here. Okay, and we can say a result is going to be something like this: the area of a triangle is 100 given the base of 10 and height of 20. Okay, so we want to do the output should look like something like this. So you can see this is the output. So how do I inject in this area? How do I inject in this 100? So I can just copy this area of a triangle, come and inject what is 100. Instead of putting hard coding 100, we can put from our calculation, and here we have to put these brackets and put area of a triangle like so. So remember how we did concatenation on top here using the curly bracket notation is what we are trying to learn here. So here the area of a triangle is triangle area given the base of $base. So here put $base to put in the base, and height of height. So here put in $height. As simple as that. So now we could echo result. So let's echo result down here. Okay, we can echo result, and here we can just say $result, like so. If I go back to the browser and I refresh, you can see here the area of a triangle is 100 given the base of 10 and the height of 20. So this is a really cool way of doing stuff. And the last thing I want to show you is that things we have all here in our PHP script, we can still use it in HTML down here. So down here, I can put an HTML document by doing Shift-1 to bring the emmet template of HTML, put the HTML code down here, and surprisingly, if I did H2, okay, and if I did H2 and I copy the same thing here, let me copy the same thing here, the one we have here, okay, this would slightly be different if wanted to use it in HTML. So that answer we can still put it here in HTML down here, but instead, so remove these double quotes. We don't need double quotes now. Remove these double quotes and this one. Now if we want to output this like here, we cannot use it like this, okay? If you try to do that, obviously you're going to see the triangle area. Let me reduce. You see the area of triangle is, so you see these ones, they have not been changing. They have not been changed. So instead, we can use here the PHP. So inside here, we can just write PHP code. As we said, PHP code can be written inside HTML, and this is how we do it. So inside here, I can say echo now. I use echo, and I don't need to use these brackets anymore now. Just echo as usual. Echo triangle area, and do the same to all of them. So Control C, come here. Here you can put base, okay, and then finally here, okay, put this. You can put height, okay. So this is how you can actually bring your code that you have built, you have written in PHP on top here, and then you bring it down in the HTML here. So you see the area of a triangle is, so let me just go and comment out the one we have here for the result, so that we have one here down. So the area of a triangle, and if I go back, I refresh, you see the area of a triangle is 100 given the base of 10 and height of 20. And now we have the ability even of styling this, because I can give, of course, style here, and I say color red, okay, color is red, okay. I can do that, and this is very powerful. Oh, I have to refresh, I guess. So refresh, and you can see this is red. So this is very powerful, how we can start now doing how we can manipulate our HTML code, okay. So the last thing I want to show you, the assignment you guys are going to try out, okay. I'm just going to show you the assignment you are going to try out, okay. I think the assignment is here, okay. So pause the video at this point and try out these challenges. There are 5 questions, okay, real world challenges. Try this coding challenge, okay. Those ones who are in the WhatsApp group, you can post your solutions, you can post your GitHub code, the GitHub link to your code in the group, and they can have a look at it, okay. But try to do this challenge and try to use the concatenation and the variable information we have to do this challenge. Okay, so try these challenges and so that you can actually improve your skill as you are learning more concepts. So thank you for watching. To reach up to this end, thank you so much. So what I request is smash that like button, subscribe, and share the content with others so that you can support the channel. Thank you so much. See you in the next episode.